what's going to happen with high school athletics. That's right, high school athletics and the COVID-19. Where do we stand as far as high school athletics stand? So the biggest question is, what is the impact of the COVID-19 situation on high school teams, and how will it affect college players? It's the Sizzle here on Iron Skillet Radio, Iron Skillet Television.
Iron Skillet Sports presents.
So, Jay, let me throw it out to you first. What is this impact that the COVID-19 situation will have on high school players moving forward?
Well, the problem is, how are you going to play football games when you can't get into school? Look, you already got Texas, California, and Georgia. Those states have already postponed their high school football. They're moving it to the spring. However, you got Florida saying we're going to play regardless, but we also know they got one of the highest COVID-19 rates in the country down there. So I assume they're just going to have the refrigerated trucks pulled up outside when the people start keeling over in the stands. It don't make no sense. Look, you can't play these football games in a manner that's going to put these kids in danger. You just can't do it. And I don't see how they're going to do it. But what's really interesting, I think you're going to see state by state, little bit by little bit, they're all going to ease their way in. But I don't really think football might start, but I don't think it's going to end up. I don't think we're going to have a champion coming in November and December. I don't think there's going to be a champion anywhere in the country.
Okay, so we're there. Rich Sizzle, what is it that you see as far as an impact, a social impact, and a maybe financial impact for high schools not being able to play because of the COVID situation?
Well, like Jay said, locally, schools are already backing out. They're saying we need 6 to 8 more weeks to get ourselves together. That's going to be the same thing with sports. How are you going to organize these kids? And the funny thing is, when you look at it, the statistics say that students, kids, whatever you want to call it, they're not as affected. But you're not going to have a fan base, a crowd base, because they're going to be the ones that get affected. That is where your money comes in. It's not where the kids are playing, where the ball players are on the field or on the court or anything like that. It's who's buying tickets. People buying tickets is where your money's going in. This isn't like professional sports where somebody can just dial in or clock in or get on Yahoo or whatever else like that. They rely on people coming to those games, and you're not going to be able to come to those games. So that's going to have a serious impact on what moves forward. How are you going to get scouts to come in? How are you going to get tapes to go out from these games? Mm-hmm. It's going to put a major halt on any kind of college recruiting, and It just goes on beyond that. It is going to be a catastrophe for sports moving forward. You're going to have a serious 2 to 3 year gap on talent, in my opinion, because we're not playing anything like we talked about in the 5-at-5. So you get kids that get together and want to play basketball or something like that. And I'm not knocking governments or anything like that for taking it away, because we're in a pandemic. But now you don't have anything to play with. You don't have anything to hone your skills in. And that's just it. So when this is lifted, the people who are still relevant are going to be relevant, but you're going to have a serious gap from about 2000 and maybe 24 to about 27 of talent that's just not going to be there simply because they weren't able to work on their craft.
Yeah, I think that's one of those big things. Jay, I'm looking at it. How do you even get fans in the stands who don't feel comfortable at games because of the virus and what's going on, and there is no vaccine in sight?
Well, what I think is going to have to happen is you're going to have your local chamber of commerce go out here and put out a fan support booth where you can come by and buy a ticket to a game that you can't attend. They're going to have to, literally, they're going to have to Skype these games or put them on YouTube or do something like that, Zoom or something like that, so you can watch the games. And because I'm going to tell you what, anybody who's ever had a kid in high school sports, what do you have to do at the beginning of every year? It's called the Spirit Pack. That's right. You got to buy the shorts, the shoes, the new jersey that's coming out, whatever else. Why can't they use the jerseys from last year? I don't understand it. But all of a sudden, you're out $350 and you don't know why. And you still got to buy mouthpieces and everything else. Look, this has to be, you're going to have some schools where you're going to find out that sporting programs are going to cease to exist because they're, like Rich is saying, there's not enough money involved. You're definitely going to see the fringe sports not be able to play. You know, look, how is tennis going to play? You know, where's the money coming for that? And so the whole issue, I mean, even you might even look at track not even be able to run this year, even though it's outdoors, but you still got to pay for it. So it's one of these situations, like Rich is saying, we might look back at this 10 years from now, but there is going to be a gap right now in athletics, and I feel really bad for these kids, these juniors and seniors right here, because you got some seniors right here that are not going to get a chance to play college football because they won't get in their senior year of football.
Yeah, it's something. I don't even know how you really put this all together. How do you play, and then how do you get kids prepared for college and they haven't played a year? This is this thing now. How do you draft players? How do you recruit players? And you got all these players really in a non-functional situation. Like we see in baseball. I know at the Railcat Stadium, they've had baseball and they have youth baseball there. But can you get people in the stands? That's going to be the biggest question. Are people ready to come back to sporting events? Or can they come back to sporting events?
I think what you're going to – I'm sorry, Richard. Let me jump in right quick. Let's get the point.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to see is that you're going to have colleges give kids a do-over year. Like you got to enter, like you would be a 6-year senior or something like that because you went down in injury. And I think they're going to use this COVID-19 as an opportunity to do that. What happens, though, are the scholarships going to increase? They're probably going to decrease because the money's not coming in. So, excuse me. So the real problem is right now is that how are you going to get these kids to play, get them on campus, and even if they test that they're not positive, how are they going to stay not positive with all the other interacting with all these other kids? I just don't see how they're going to do it. So it's going to be really interesting. Go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry.
You got right onto the point I was getting ready to make. I mean, like you said, how are we playing these games when this kid's going to get sick, that person's going to get sick, this person in the stands are going to get sick, and then what are we doing? Is everybody just going to redshirt? Is everybody going to just redshirt? But then you know what that means when you redshirt, that you're not under a scholarship. Some of these high schoolers going into college cannot afford college in any way. Even if you give them a substantial loan to make it, they still are not going to be able to make it based off anything beyond just that. They're not going to be able to survive. So where is the compensation beyond that? You know, we've talked about in previous shows about compensating collegiate players based on their performance or abilities or things like that. But you're not proven at this point. You haven't had logged in any kind of stats in high school. So how can you carry this conversation up about collegiates getting paid if there's no sports going on? So that Sizzle conversation fizzled out real quick. And now we're back to the Sizzle conversation of what to do if and when. And we're not even at when yet. We're still at if, because like I said, we're looking at 2020 and 2021 potentially as a wash for all sports at this time. Football particularly, because we're coming right around the corner for that.
Yeah, we're right at the door. We're knocking at the door for football. And on our next segment, we're going to talk a lot about collegiate sports and where they go and really what sports play and pay for what teams. Just as Jay, as you were saying, man, there are teams that live from the money that's raised from the football and basketball team. And so now what do you do? How do you put this all together? And do we have an administration as far as what we're seeing nationally? Do we have people on the same page? Do you have the White House on the same page with your governors, or your governors on the same page with your mayors and local city council? This has the potential to be the biggest mess of the 21st century because no one has ever experienced any foolishness like this before.
Every state now has their own criteria of how they're going to open up to play sports. Every state's different. Right where we are, Illinois is opening up, and what they're doing, they're saying, hey, you can get together with 50 people, but you can have minimum contact, but you can't go inside, and then you have to be around here for 20. And then Indiana, on the other side of it, with Eric Holcomb is saying, well, the restaurants can open up, but you guys can't still get together too often to have too much contact. You still have to have social distancing. Well, how are you going to have social distancing and practice football? You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be able to happen. So it's just one of these situations. I really do believe, because there is no central governing body over high school football, over high school sports in and of itself, that you're going to see a lot of disparaging going around state by state. And this has a real potential of breaking down a lot of leagues and a lot of teams that these schools stop playing sports.
Hey, Jay, wait till they start playing and they put in these little side rules that nobody's ever heard of, and the team goes to try to huddle, and then the ref throws a flag for them getting in the huddle for social distancing.
Yeah, 10 yards on the play for social distancing. You got a 15-yard penalty for giving him the business when you were talking to him and spittle came out.
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to do it? And then, I don't know, man. We are uncharted territory. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen anything like this before. This is not about a war that happened, or this is not about a natural disaster saying that, part of a city caught on fire or something like that. We just need to. This is none of that. This is a enemy at the gate that we can't see, that we don't know anybody who has it, and we're trying to defend against it, and we're still trying to be entertained. Look, I don't know how they're going to do it. I hope they do play, but the main thing is that the safety of the kids is the most important thing. And so we're going to see. I just, like I said, this is going to be a crazy year.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy, crazy year. And when we come back, when we return, we're going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on collegiate sports and collegiate players. You know what it is. You know what it is. It's the Sizzle here on Iron Skillet Radio, Iron Skillet Television, and we're talking about the impact of COVID-19 on collegiate sports. We just talked about high school sports, but what is the true impact of COVID-19 on high school sports and college sports? We're going to break it down for you right now. So, Jay Sizzle, let's start with you. What is the impact of this COVID-19 on collegiate sports right now?
Hey, it's all about the money. Right now, they have tuitions not getting paid. They don't have fans coming in there. They don't have the money at the gate. You got a big problem. Look, you got the G5 out here, which are the top five, the group of five, the top five conferences in the country. And they are the ACC, the Conference USA, the Mid-American Conference, the MAC Conference, and the Sun Belt Conference. They are already talking about cutting this year sports like volleyball, fencing, soccer, baseball, which is amazing, and tennis, to allocate a larger amount of money of those sports programs to go into two major sports, that's football and basketball, because they know where their butt is being bred. You're looking right now at a situation where a number of sports in college possibly will not play this year and might be dropped for the next upcoming years.
Absolutely right. What was the point of, like you said, tennis, volleyball, fencing, if you're not going to play in the Olympics? We had no Olympics this year. And they said, oh, well, we'll just push it to 2021. Nah, it ain't going to happen.
Baseball, no, a new report just said they don't want it in 2021. Right. Now, they're not going to push it back, but they said they don't want it. So what happens now?
Well, like you said, baseball's cut out. Why? Because most of those players go straight to the pros or go into a AA or AAA system. And it's going to be the same with basketball, probably. The same with football. You're not going to have a choice. Like I said before, you're going to have a fundamental and talent gap in the next few years of professional versus non-professional, and it's going to show. You're going to be like, who are these draft players coming in 2023, 2024? You're not going to be able to name them, and they're going to be right there at number one because they weren't able to have any kind of maturation process because all they did was just sit there and watch their Field of Dreams and watch ESPN field another show of somebody else's Last Dance. So all they're doing is emulating what they see on TV. They can't even go out and practice it.
Right. It's become a situation now where if you don't have the major conferences, if I'm right, Jay, the major conferences have said they're going to play interconference games. Your Big 10, Big 12, their SEC, all of these conferences now are playing interconference games, and they're not playing anybody outside of their conference. Does that help? Does that work?
No, it doesn't help. If you play in the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the Big 10, if you're Illinois, you still got to travel to Minnesota. You still got to travel to Iowa. You still got to go to all these different other places to play. That makes no sense. I don't understand what that has to do with anything, whether I have to fly to Minnesota. Are you not playing all your games inside Illinois or inside Florida? So that was a ridiculous thing. I don't understand. To me, that was just a Band-Aid on a gash. That's all that was. You're just looking for people trying to figure out a way that they can play some type of way. Because right now you have these G5, these conferences going to the NCAA, you looking for a special petition to say, hey, look, we know we're supposed to have 16 Division I sports playing at our school. That's how we get Division I status. But right now, we can't afford to play 16 different sports at our schools because we're not going to have the money. So like you're saying, Greg, and we talked about it, it doesn't make any difference about whether you're playing interconference or out of your conference. You still got to travel. You still have the same problems. To me, it's just they're just trying to figure out a way to say, look, we tried to do something because I really think down the line here they're going to end up canceling the seasons.
Yeah, it ain't happening. It's just it's not
I can't see it. Yeah, I can't see where this is going to come. I can't even see where. Okay, so let's take basketball for example. With Loyola, you've got Sister Jean there, one of the biggest Loyola supporters and fans. Are you going to risk putting your senior population in jeopardy by bringing them to games? Will they even be able to make it to arenas? Or are you going to have one arena that they can even go to? I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain it to me where I can understand it, like a third grader. And I don't even think third graders can get it.
They're just going to pass out hazmat suits to everybody and only allow 500 people, one per row, and no popcorn.
Okay, so you don't have concessions, so those people aren't making money. You don't have money that you're getting in the gate. So what are you going to just you're going to let people in for free now just so they're there, and then you send them like to stand Uber Eats? That's how this is going to work now?
Oh, you're missing the big one. You're missing the big one. These teams don't play. These coaches don't get paid.
Oh, and if you don't have concessions, how do you sell alcohol in the stands?
Right.
Well, maybe they don't sell all alcohol, but you don't sell stuff.
What's the point of having like an Uber Eats concession if you can't take your mask off to eat it?
Yeah, that's the other problem about that. You know what's amazing is that you got over 140,000 Division I students that play an Olympic sport. Not football, basketball, an Olympic sport. That's rowing and fencing and judo and everything of wrestling or whatever else. Those players are going to be SOL. That's just what's going to happen because they're going to funnel all that money away because there's going to be no money for them. We all know that the programs that conduct all the business for all these sports are two programs in most places. That's your football team in Division I and your basketball team if you're really good. But usually football carries 8 or 9 sports by itself. Without football being played, that's 8 or 9 sports not going to be able to play. What happened to these kids' scholarships now? What happens to these kids coming out, these guys who are good tennis players and track runners and the rest of them? What about all these scholarships they were counting on? Will these schools honor these scholarships now if their teams don't play? You know what I'm saying? This is a real quagmire right now.
I mean, it's like the only sport that you could really play is NASCAR. You could only be collegiate race car driving. Will that
Well,
work? Can you
there
put them
are
in a car?
sports. There are sports that you can still play, but you just
Really?
don't have a fan base beyond it because you can't have a gathering of people to watch it live. And
So what are you gonna play?
you play golf. You play golf. You can fence. I mean, they got enough face guards and everything else like that for fencing. Yeah, I said it.
That was top on the list. They put fencing right on. That was number 2. We're cutting that out.
Why
Say,
is that number 2? Do you know how much stuff they got on?
Look,
well, okay. What are you gonna do? Put it
it's
on like Facebook fencing? That's what
it's
you're gonna
the
do on your
money.
website?
It's the money. They don't want to.
No.
You don't want to
Well,
pay.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about like with risk of catching the COVID.
No.
Okay.
They're cutting it out. No, they're cutting it
Yeah.
out because of the money. They don't want to pay for the. They don't want to pay the electricity for the little light to go beep
Yeah.
when they get
Well,
touched with the sword. They don't want to pay none of that.
yeah, like I said, all the sports that you can participate in, swimming and things like that have very little contact, you can't have an audience to watch it. And then, like Jay says, you can't gather other money from other sources. So they're just going to fade to black, unfortunately.
Well,
But
let's
there
talk
are
about
sports
our
out
love.
there. You just, like I said, there's nobody there to watch unless you're watching it on TV. And who's going to go turn on ESPN and go, how many million people are going to watch fencing? I don't know if we're that far up on watching live sports that we're just going to say we're just going to watch whatever that comes to us. And I'm not dissing fencing at all. I'm just saying.
That's not even going to work. I don't think you can work it that way, but we got to talk about our love. Football. How do you play football? How do you go about putting kids in a safe situation, putting young people, children, student athletes, how do you put them in a safe situation where they can play football and not get injured and not test positive for COVID-19?
Look, we all know they might get one game in this year because we know a lot of schools right now aren't even going to have any preseason games. They're not going to play no preseason because they don't want to risk the exposure. We might get 2 games in some of these schools like Florida. Florida don't care. They're going to play. They don't care what's going to happen down there. They're going to play down there. But beyond that, you got kids out here who might. Here's the issue, though. Here's the whole issue. Even though we know kids can get this disease, COVID-19, and they think, well, it won't be too bad on them. But what about if one of these kids get the disease and they have an underlying condition that causes them a problem, that they have asthma or something like this, and God forbid one of these kids succumb to this COVID-19 because we allowed them to play? That's a thing that you got to think about. Is the school district then going to be responsible for putting them in an unsafe environment? That's what the lawyers are going to start thinking about. What do we need to do in case something happens to one of these people? That's why I just think in the long run, I don't think they're going to end up playing.
We talked about that when we were talking about baseball, and there's a Cubs player that has to use a ventilator or some type of breathing apparatus.
Yeah.
What about young people that are sick? And Jay, you hit that one on the head. I mean, and then who's legally responsible?
Yeah.
Is it the parent? Is it the school system? Is it the state? Who even makes? How do we get to this point where we're not coordinated at all? No one has. Everybody's doing their own thing. You do your thing. We'll do our thing. But still, you're talking about the lives of young people. Go ahead, Rich. Tell me something.
I don't care how many indemnification waivers you sign, like Jay says. And that is the biggest cup I've ever seen.
Dude,
Jay.
if you all could see, I'm just telling you right now. And those of you who are watching, when you start watching, you're going to see this chalice that Jay Sizzle has. Yes, the COVID buster.
This is the cup right here. Hey, big man needs a big cup. You know what I'm saying?
Back to my point, I don't care how many indemnification waivers you sign. That first kid that goes down for any kind of COVID-related thing that has to sit overnight in the hospital, you're going to have 20,000 lawyer emails at that kid's house the next day, ready to go full throttle at it.
Right.
And then, like you said, what do you do then? Because this is a lawyer-populated base nation right now. They'll sue you over anything. Somebody's probably lined up trying to sue us for something crazy we didn't say it already. It's just how it is.
Somebody's going to sue us that we are drinking on set. We are drinking out of chalices. And how dare you do something like that? You can't.
No, I'm drinking out of my mugshot.
Yes. Well, you're a special kind of guy. But we got to. Okay, so what happens if Trevor Lawrence gets injured, and not injured, but contracts COVID? And I'm not saying he is. Please don't let anybody think that I am. But I'm just saying, what do you do then when one of your biggest stars in college gets COVID? Rich, how do you even solve that?
I can go simpler than that. What happens when one of your students or athletes gets injured, has to go to the hospital, and then contracts COVID at the hospital? Because that's a breeding ground for the COVID at the hospital, because that's where everybody wants to go when they're sick. Nothing wrong with that, because that's where you should go. But likewise, if you're injured, that's where you go as well, and then they get sick.
What happens? We're going to use the Trevor Lawrence here. Not Trevor Lawrence has not said anything like this, guys. I'm just putting it out here. What if you're a Trevor Lawrence and you're going to go number 1 in the draft for next year, and this COVID-19 out there, maybe you sit out this year. You don't risk playing because you don't want to mess up your draft status. You don't want about getting sick because you haven't got your money yet. Your Lloyds of London is only going to insure you for about $2 million. You just saw the biggest contract we've ever seen happen to a guy who's just barely 3 years out of college. All of a sudden, he signed for a potentially $500 million. If you're Trevor Lawrence and I want to risk about going out here getting the COVID-19 and getting sick, I'm going home. I'm not going to play. I don't have to play. If Trevor Lawrence doesn't play one down of football this year, he's still going top 10 in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, and the crazy part is, what if one of his linemen is COVID positive? Not even if he's COVID positive, but just one of the linemen or your running back or your tight end or one of your receivers. How does that affect? And we're not just talking about Trevor Lawrence, but we're talking about the rest of the collegiate students across the board. How does this affect? We just talked about it in one of our last segments about Russell Westbrook, but you still got people who are mad at Rudy Gobert in Utah because they said, hey, you gave everybody the COVID. You gave reporters, you gave the phones the COVID, you gave deaths the COVID. You actually brought the COVID to Utah. So, I mean, what's going to happen then when you got somebody who says you destroyed Alabama football because you had the COVID and you brought it in and now everybody has the COVID? What do you do then? How do you even police the situation now?
You don't, man. And like you said, you're gonna have like this whole Star Wars meme, like you were the chosen one. You were supposed to deliver us from it, not give it to everybody,
Yeah. You're the one who's to lead us, but you led us to the COVID.
It doesn't matter. That first athlete, that first coach, that first whatever gets it, they might as well start packing their bags, unfortunately. There's no answer for it.
Look, man, the NCAA has come out and said, came up with its minimum testing guidelines. It says every player needs to be tested at least once a week and at least 72 hours before a game. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. How are you going to keep 110 guys COVID-free on a college campus? You can't get these guys to put a mask on. Do you see them partying down there on the beaches and the lakefronts? Do you see these kids getting together down there? You don't think a whole bunch of testosterone having 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are going to sit inside their dome, inside the bubble, and just play with their Xbox? I don't think so. This is a COVID-19 soup waiting to be brewed down here, and it ain't going to take but 1 or 2 or 3 guys to get this on one of these ball clubs, and then that's going to be it. It's going to be shut down.
We just saw that in the NBA. You saw a player leave the bubble to go get carry out, which I don't understand why he didn't get carry in. He comes back and tests positive for COVID-19.
You need to have Chick-fil-A, man. What are you talking about? You didn't have no Chick-fil-A down at Disney World. Goofy Burgers. That's all they got down there is Goofy Burgers.
He was not getting carry out. He was getting some carry.
Oh, he was getting
Oh.
carried out. He
He was
wrestled.
Okay. All right. Well, now I understand. Now that makes sense. Now, okay. So
the
we
Disney
come.
princesses had went home and
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I'm just saying right now, how do you do this? Oh, and by the way, we're in the midst of social unrest. Now, I know no laws have been changed, so I know some things are going to stay the same, but we're in the midst of social unrest, a pandemic, and colleges who can't figure out what they're doing. Yeah, it's great. I think it's amazing. I think this is amazingly terrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm Debbie Downer right now. I think this is horrible, but who am I? I'm
no,
just
you're
the
not.
guy who looks good in a sizzle hat.
You're not, because didn't they send all the college students home? Like, forget sports, they just sent them all home. We still haven't
Right.
even gotten to the point of getting students back in the classroom, let alone a dorm. A
Right.
dorm? Ah,
Universities that still have kids who haven't gotten their things from the fall, or universities who said they've closed their doors altogether and everybody's doing online learning. So only the athletes then will be able to be on campus?
Well, and here's the problem too. Look at the backlog of testing results we have in the United States.
Mhm.
So you're supposed to get tested 72 hours before the game, but your test results don't come back for 2 weeks. So
Right.
how is that supposed to work? Then the question has to be too, where's the panic button? If we get one COVID result, we're just gonna send that one kid home, we're gonna play. Is it 2? Is it 3? How many before we say, hey, we can't play? And that's you're going to have inter squad games playing. That's what's going to happen out here. You're going to have inter squad games. It's going to be the number ones against the number 2s and 3s, and you're going to be flipping the quarterbacks back and forth. It's going to be all spring game football. That's what it's going to end up being.
and then wait for the swab gate. When you're sitting there and the person swabbing the nose of the star player all of a sudden has a false positive because the conspiracy of the other person testing them didn't want that person playing because they didn't want their team losing by an undeniable amount of points. So they make sure that person gets a false positive. Oh,
Yeah.
it's coming. It's coming.
Wait till you get the one guy who never goes anywhere, and everybody he's gonna be a swab for all the starters on the football team. They're gonna be swabbing him so to make sure all their number one guys play. That's what's going to end up happening. It's going to be stuff like that, man. It's going to be incredible.
Man, this is the most ridiculous, because this topic, even though we've talked about it before, we've had this discussion, it just keeps centering around the same foolishness time and time again. That the reality is, I don't believe that we can safely put our children in a situation where they have to go back to a university or to a high school and anywhere and play.
But you know what? Major college sports have never been about the student athlete anyway. It's all been about generating that money. It's about keeping these universities open. It's about keeping this tenure for these professors so they can do the epidemiologists and they can, go get bugs in Madagascar. Because I'm going to tell you what, when these people go and do all this traveling all over the place, that's coming off that football gate money. That's where it's coming from. And the issue is now that if that money's not there, are some of these academic programs going to get shut down? See, this is a real serious situation going on right now, because you have a lot of people who are betting on keeping that college tuition money coming in, so their paychecks keep getting paid. What about if all of a sudden professors stop getting paid? You know what? You only can do so much online. So look how many referees. How many guys out here every year coach, referee high school football, college football, basketball, stuff like that, and that's their side hustle money. That's how they make ends meet. Now that money's not going to be there. Look, this is a real serious situation going on, because you have a lot of cash money businesses that are going on that are not going to have the money going to them. You might start seeing a default of mortgages because of this. I mean, this is a big deal right now. This is real serious.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't want to leave the people with such a dire and grim look, but the reality is this is how serious this is. This is at ground zero of seriousness. And even though we talk and we play and we have our fun here on the Sizzle, this is a topic that we extended just so that we could keep this conversation going, so that when you hear this podcast, when you see us on Sizzle Television, you can see where this conversation's going and you can start directing people, because that meant you liked, you shared, and you subscribed to the Sizzle. It's a wonderful thing. It's an amazing thing. I think it's the best thing going. So before we get ready to get out of here, you know what we got to do. We got to leave the people with something hot. Jay Sizzle, leave the people with something fire.
Look, man, I'm just going to go to my local high school, sneak on into the stadium, and just bring my own walking taco and imagine the games being played, because I think that's what we're going to be seeing. One man on the 50-yard line with his walking taco. That's
the new movie on Netflix. One man, one walking taco.
Yeah.
It's Jay, the one-man band. Rich Sizzle, leave the people with something hot.
Man, look, people are out here getting their nuggets monkey stomped for not wearing their mask right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, okay? One thing that grinds my gears, though, is I have kids, and the kids' masks are 3 times more expensive than adult masks, but
Right.
we'll deal with that. But what I'm trying to tell you is wear your mask. And my other part of that, without getting too politically incorrect, I just wish they were so passionate about condoms as they were with PPEs, and we would have solved the other pandemic a long time ago as well.
not touching that one, huh? But
I'm not going to touch that from the 50-yard line.
Put your condom on your mic. Don't touch it.
I'm not.
Am I lying? Am I lying? You know, they
true.
call you crazy, but you're telling the truth, you know?
Nobody said you were lying. I'm just saying I'm not even going. I'm not going to do that, because that's ridiculously right. That is what that is. It's ridiculously right. So you know what it is. You know who it is. It's the Sizzle here on Iron Skillet Radio, Iron Skillet Television. We are the talk of the 219, the hottest sports talk in the region. Look, thank you for listening to us. And if you're not following us, hey, shame on you. Follow us on any social media platform. Look for Iron Skillet Sports. You can follow us, like, subscribe, and share. Share with somebody. Tell them about the Sizzle. Tell them you need to listen to this. Save your life and the life of people that you know. It may not save everybody you know, but it's going to save somebody you know. Don't worry about it. It's the Sizzle here on Iron Skillet Radio, Iron Skillet Television. We are the talk of the 219.